Inside a Chicago courtroom early Thursday evening, the man Jesse Jackson, described as a well-known, non-violent, black, gay man of Jewish heritage, that man cast himself as Nelson Mandela. As sheriffs escorted the civil rights activist Jussie Smollett to a Cook County jail cell, the convicted felon thrust his half-black fist into the air, declared his innocence, and shouted once again, "I am not suicidal." Watch for yourself.
I am not suicidal.
Stop laughing about black.
I am not suicidal, and I am innocent. I could have said that I was guilty a long time ago.
And I don't know if you heard the woman in the background, "Stop locking up black men." What about half-black men with Jewish heritage who are gay and well-known? Should we not lock them up? Bizarre does not adequately describe the courtroom proceedings that ended with a judge sentencing Smollett to 150 days in jail and 30 months of probation, and the former TV star emphatically posturing as a political prisoner. He's America's Nelson Mandela. Smollett arrived at his sentencing fashionably late, like a celeb taking his NBA Finals courtside seat minutes after tip-off. On the way into the courtroom, Smollett and his entourage and bodyguards shoved their way past members of the media, knocking one man to the ground. Once inside, Smollett's nightmare team of lawyers and character witnesses constantly relitigated the 5 guilty verdicts from his race hoax trial, condescendingly lectured the judge, and displayed a level of arrogance, entitlement, and cluelessness that would embarrass an off-the-wagon Hunter Biden. Apparently, there's no stronger delusion than half-black privilege. Smollett's 92-year-old white grandmother hammered that point 90 minutes before her grandson began his long walk to freedom. Smollett's granny took the witness stand and threw herself into the role of Winnie Mancaron. She blasted the media for failing to properly investigate the events that turned her spoiled heir, into a 5-time felon. She wagged her finger at the judge, telling him, "I asked you, Judge, not to send him to prison. And if you do, send me along with him, okay?" Judge James Lynn scolded and berated Smollett for a half an hour before rendering Smollett's sentence for premeditating an elaborate, buffoonish, and farcical racial hate crime hoax and repeatedly lying about it to the police, a jury, and the judge. Watch this.
You're not a victim of a racial hate crime. You're not a victim of a homophobic hate crime. You're just a charlatan pretending to be a victim of a hate crime. And that's shameful, especially from the family you got brought up with your family values. It's so sad. So I'm trying to consider who you are as a person, how you got here, how somehow you strayed away from your family values, you let that dark, narcissistic, selfish, and arrogant side come out, and you persisted with it for years on this case.
Yeah, charlatan, pretending to be a victim. The description applies to many of Smollett's high-profile supporters, particularly Jesse Jackson and Derrick Johnson, the president of the NAACP. Jackson, Johnson, and Smollett exemplify the pervasive exploitation, perversion, and commercialization of the 1950s and 60s civil rights movement. A righteous, dignified movement that fought for freedom and opportunity for everyday black people has been turned into a branding hustle for celebrities and other elites. They stand on the neck and backs of dead career criminals, feign outrage, enhance their brand and or move up the corporate ladder, and use their growing wealth to move closer to white people, white neighborhoods, white schools, and so-called white supremacy. Jussie Smollett made it to the promised land, the land where Barack Obama, Colin Kaepernick, Brian Flores, Meghan Markle, Trevor Noah, Don Lemon, and other elite BIPOCs are told the truth doesn't apply to them. They exist in a bubble of delusion and confusion created specifically for them by their liberal political puppet masters and policed by corporate media. Smollett was groomed for this bubble since birth. His family clearly nurtured and fed the arrogance, selfishness, and narcissism Judge Lynn found astounding. There's no other explanation for Smollett's family's unhinged desperation to shield him from the consequences of his race hoax. Had Smollett's grandmother and brother been motivated by love, they would have been far less defiant, angry, and smug at Thursday's sentencing. Guilt explains their tone and behavior. They created Jussie Frankenstein. They've been the supporting actors in Jussie's Nelson Mandela cosplay for 4 decades. They simply stayed in character after hearing the sentence, claiming Smollett's 150-day verdict was another example of the discrimination American black men face in the criminal justice system. Jussie Smollett finally melted down. Watch for yourself.
Do you have any questions?
No, I would just like to say to Your Honor that I am not suicidal. That's what I was about to say.
Okay.
I am not suicidal.
Okay.
I am not suicidal. I am innocent, and I am not suicidal. If I did this, then it means that I stuck my fist in the fears of black Americans in this country for over 400 years and the fears of the LGBTQ community. Your Honor, I respect you and I respect the jury, but I did not do this. And I am not suicidal. And if anything happens to me when I go in there, I did not do it to myself. And you must all know that.
You know what I found fascinating about that clip? And I was watching this live yesterday. It's how Smollett's lawyers never flinched. Basically had no reaction. The one woman eventually stood up with him, but the male attorney to Smollett's right, that guy never moved. He never came up out of his laptop. The female that stood up with him, she never made eye contact with him. And so this guy's melting down. His attorneys know he's melting down. To me, I'm not even blaming the attorneys. I'm blaming Jussie Smollett because I think the attorneys know, we're representing a crazy person. We knew this was a possibility. He gave us instructions and called for us to behave in a way that was going to land him in jail. And so I think, particularly the guy sitting down, the dark-skinned attorney sitting down, he's sitting there, I think he's sitting there saying, Jussie, I tried to tell you. I'm not even gonna look at you and your bizarre behavior, because I told you if we came out here and read all these letters and you let your brother get up there and relitigate the case, even though he kept saying, I'm not gonna relitigate the case, but he and the 92-year-old grandmother were so condescending to the judge, so condescending, that I'm sure those attorneys whoo, this ain't gonna play well with this judge. And so when he started melting down and after he got what he deserved, what he richly deserved, the lawyer had no expression. I ain't even gonna look at this clown. This Jussie Smollett, and we read all those letters from elites and Jesse Jackson and Samuel L. Jackson's wife talking about what a great person he is, and Jussie did this, and he raised money for Colin Kaepernick's this, and he gave money to X, Y. It's all a gimmick. It's all branding. He didn't do it with any authenticity. It wasn't what's really in his heart. He was building a brand. It's not authentic because his family isn't authentic. That 92-year-old grandmother, condescending, arrogant, that was the epitome of privilege. She got up on the stand, waved her finger at the judge and talking about send me to jail with him. And Jussie Smollett just sitting back, wiping tears because his 92-year-old grandmama's finna come up here and tell this judge, give her a piece of her mind. And my brother gave him a piece of his mind. Arrogance, run amok. They left that judge with no choice but to send that guy to jail. No remorse, no admittance, just delusion. and his family fed it to him. Yeah, so the judge writes, there's nothing the judge could do worse than what Smollett has done to himself. He swallowed his own hype. And Smollett definitely did it to himself. No one is denying that. He destroyed his name, reputation, and career 3 years ago when he foolishly claimed white MAGA-hatted wearing thugs lassoed him with a noose and tried to harm him. Smollett destroyed his chance at avoiding jail time by instructing his army of lawyers to behave as though their client was the last innocent man and a victim of political revenge. In the immediate aftermath of his hoax, Smollett went on NBC, sat down with Robert Roberts, and acted like he was the target of violence because of his criticism of the sitting president, Donald Trump. This interview that I'm about to show you, this clip, is exactly why Jussie Smollett had to go to jail. Watch.
Why do you think you were targeted?
I can just assume, I come really, really hard against 45. I come really, really hard against his administration. And I don't hold my tongue.
Now, I've already mocked this previously, months ago. I come really, really hard at 45, and I use my tongue. This dude is a nut job. And Robin Roberts and Jesse Jackson and everybody else who enabled this nut job needs to be ashamed of themselves. His family, the entire posse, convinced this B-list actor that Trump represented American apartheid and Jussie was the half-black gay Nelson Mandela. Smollett is a victim. He's a victim of CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, Twitter, and Facebook. Corporate and social media radicalized Jussie Smollett. They did the same thing to half of America. They developed and released the Trump derangement virus that ignited a 5-year and still counting pandemic of irrational behavior. The exact same platforms radicalized a significant segment of Trump supporters who stormed the Capitol. One of the president's supporters, Ashley Babbitt, was murdered. Many others remain in jail or have been handed long prison sentences. Jussie Smollett may never realize how easy he got off. Ashley Babbitt has far more in common with Nelson Mandela than Jussie Smollett. And she wasn't suicidal either. She was the one who had to be running around in fear that somebody was out to get her. Ain't nobody out to get Jussie Smollett. Chicago is one of the most democratic cities in all of the country. That whole system is rigged up for well-known black gay men with Jewish heritage. You ever seen Lori Lightfoot and her wife, the mayor? That whole city is bent over begging Jussie Smollett to pleasure them. You know what kind of an idiot you have to be in that city to be a leftist and get Lori Lightfoot to want you in jail? No target. Don't nobody in jail, in Cook County Jail, want to harm Jussie Smollett. They may want to get next to him, but they don't want to harm him. Don't nobody outside of the Cook County Jail, unless the only thing that could justify his paranoia about somebody Jeff Epstein in him, is it Jeff Epstein? Jeff Epstein, worry about Jeff Epstein in him, is if the power structure, if the Democratic elites talked him in to pulling this race hate hoax. Now, if he's afraid that he may squeal and tell who put him up to doing this dumb stuff, and that they may seek revenge on him to shut him up, he makes a tiny bit of sense. A tiny bit. That, when I watched him and, I'm suicidal, I'm blah, blah, blah. The first time I heard him, I thought he was being defiant towards the judge. I thought he was trying to say, you ain't hurt me. I can do these 150 standing on my head. I ain't suicidal. I'm built for this. That's what I thought. And then as he explained himself, if something happens to me in here, I didn't do it. I'm not suicidal. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's paranoid. He thinks he's going to get killed. Well, who would have motive to kill Jussie Smollett in Chicago? The headquarters for Democratic politics. That just, we've heard Jussie say, I come hard for 45. He didn't say, I come hard for Barack Obama. And hell, there's probably more truth to that. Let me stop. Get myself in trouble.